Welcome to the deep dive. Everywhere you look, generative AI is the buzzword, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's everywhere.
It's dominating conversations in boardrooms. It's enhancing our daily tasks, probably helping someone draft an email as we speak. And the numbers, they're pretty striking. Nearly 8 out of 10 companies report using Gen AI in some form.
That's huge adoption, really fast.
It is. But here's the twist, the paradox that's genuinely puzzling. Almost just as many companies, so nearly 8 out of 10 again, also report no significant bottom line impact.
Right.
It's a bit like having this gleaming brand new car in the garage, fully fueled, ready to go, but you haven't quite figured out how to drive it to where you actually need to be.
That's a perfect analogy, and that's exactly the core problem we're digging into today, this Gen AI paradox. It's a very real challenge for businesses right now. Our mission in this deep dive, and we're drawing heavily from insights in a recent June 2025 report called Seizing the Agentic AI Advantage, is really to understand why Gen AI, despite being embraced so widely, has kind of fallen short for so many.
Okay.
And maybe more importantly, we want to reveal the critical missing piece that looks poised to unlock truly scalable, transformative impact. And that piece is agentic AI.
Agentic AI.
Sure.
And this isn't just, tech for tech's sake. This sounds like it's about a fundamental shift, how decisions get made, how work actually flows through organizations.
Exactly. And how humans will engage, in a world where software can not just suggest things, but actually act on its own.
Right. So if you're listening and you want to quickly but thoroughly grasp this next frontier in AI and what it really means in the real world, well, you're definitely in the right place. Let's unpack this paradox. What's going on?
Well, the paradox is really quite stark when you look at the numbers. Before generative AI, exploded onto the scene, traditional AI already held immense value potential. We're talking estimates of $11 trillion to maybe $18 trillion globally.
Wow.
Yeah, in areas like marketing, supply chain optimization. But its adoption was, it was relatively slow. It was largely expert-driven, needed very specialized skills.
Right. Niche.
Very niche. Then tools like ChatGPT came along and basically democratized access. That added potentially another $2.6 trillion to $4.4 trillion in value potential just through broader use.
Okay.
And that led to the explosion in adoption. You mentioned over 78% of companies now using Gen AI in at least one function.
And yet, despite that incredible speed, that rapid adoption, here's that surprising statistic again. Over 80% of those companies report no material contribution to their earnings from it.
No real impact on the bottom line.
And this one really gets me. Only 1% of enterprises view their Gen AI strategies as mature. 1%.
That's tiny.
It's almost like everyone bought the hype, bought the tool, but very few have actually cracked the code on making it genuinely profitable or transformative. So what is causing this huge disconnect? Enthusiasm versus impact.
Well, that's really the imbalance we're seeing play out. Most companies have leaned heavily into what we call horizontal use cases.
Okay, horizontal. What does that mean exactly?
Think of these as like enterprise-wide tools, copilots, chatbots, things like Microsoft 365 Copilot, which you mentioned. Nearly 70% of Fortune 500 companies are using it.
Right. Stuff lots of people can use across the company.
Exactly. They're pretty straightforward to implement, relatively speaking, and they absolutely offer individual productivity gains, helping people save time, synthesize info. That's real.
Sure. I use them.
We all do. But the benefits are diffuse. They're spread across many individuals, and it's very hard to measure that in terms of direct top or bottom line results for the company itself.
Okay, so it makes individual employees maybe a bit more efficient, which is great, but it's not necessarily shifting the company's overall financial performance needle.
Precisely.
So on the flip side, then, you have these vertical use cases. What are those?
So these are the function-specific, often deeply embedded tools. They have a much higher potential for direct economic impact. We're talking about things like negotiation assistance for sales teams, maybe sophisticated supply risk assessors, or tools that can auto-generate complex requests for proposals-RFPs.
Okay. Things really built for a specific high-value job within the company.
Exactly. These are the ones that could genuinely transform a specific business function, not just make individuals slightly faster.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
There usually is. Here's the kicker. The data tells us less than 10% of these really high-potential vertical use cases actually make it past the pilot stage.
Only 10%. Wow.
Yeah. And even when they are deployed, they often only support, isolated steps within a much larger process. And they tend to remain reactive. They wait for a human prompt rather than proactively driving the workflow.
Okay, so their scope is limited, which limits their real impact.
Right. It really restricts their real-world scalable impact.
So if these vertical use cases promise so much value, what's holding them back? Why aren't they transforming businesses left, right, and center? It often starts with something surprisingly common, I guess, in innovation. The report points to 6 key barriers, and the first one is fragmented initiatives. Can you unpack that one?
Absolutely. It's a classic problem. Many of these vertical projects tend to just pop up, sort of bottom up, almost in isolation. They're very granular.
Like pet projects.
Sometimes, yeah, or just departmental initiatives. They're often disconnected from any overarching corporate strategy, and the data backs this up. Less than 30% of CEOs are directly sponsoring their company's AI agenda.
That's low for something supposedly so strategic.
It is. And that lack of top-level sponsorship leads to scattered investments, prevents the kind of coordinated push you need for significant change.
Okay, so fragmentation is one. And it's not just about a lack of strategic alignment, right? Even if you have a good idea, the tools themselves might not be quite there.
Exactly. That's barrier number 2, the lack of mature packaged solutions. Unlike those easy-to-implement horizontal tools like the copilots, these vertical use cases typically demand custom development, and they use rapidly evolving tech.
Right, it's cutting edge, which means it's maybe not stable or easy to work with yet.
Correct. And many companies might have brilliant data scientists, but they often lack the MLO engineers, that's machine learning operations. Those are the folks crucial for actually industrializing these models, maintaining them in production, making sure they run smoothly and reliably at scale. It's one thing to build a prototype, quite another to run it 24/7.
Got it. MLOps. And then the underlying technology itself, the first generation large language models, they had their own issues, didn't they?
They did. That's the third barrier, technological limitations of first-gen LLMs. They sometimes produced inaccurate outputs, hallucinations as we call them.
Right, which makes trust a huge issue, especially if you need precision.
Absolutely. They were also often passive. They didn't act without an explicit prompt. They struggled with complex, multi-step workflows. And many had limited persistent memory. They'd lose context over longer interactions.
Which makes handling complex business processes really difficult.
Very difficult. Then, moving on, barrier 4 was siloed AI teams. Lots of companies set up AI centers of excellence, which were great for prototyping and raising awareness, getting things started.
Sure, makes sense to centralize expertise initially.
It does, but they frequently operated quite independently from the core business and IT functions. This autonomy, while good for quick experiments, often led to poor integration later on. Scaling became a nightmare because the solutions weren't built with the existing IT infrastructure or data flows in mind.
Okay, another integration challenge. And when you don't have good integration, you often run smack into barrier number 5, data accessibility and quality gaps.
Data.
Always data. It always comes back to data, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This is a massive issue, especially, the report says, for unstructured data. So customer emails, social media chatter, call transcripts.
Exactly. Stuff that's incredibly valuable but remains largely ungoverned, messy, and hard to access in most organizations. If your AI can't get to the data, or if the data it gets is garbage, well, garbage in, garbage out, it simply won't perform.
Right. And beyond the tech and data barriers, imagine the human element, the sort of people aspect, plays a huge role too. Barrier 6, cultural apprehension and organizational inertia. What does that actually look like on the ground? Are we talking middle managers feeling threatened, or is it just general resistance to change?
It's often a complex mix. You definitely see some subtle, sometimes not so subtle resistance from business teams and middle management. There's fear of disruption, genuine uncertainty about job impacts, and sometimes just a lack of familiarity with the technology.
It's hard to embrace something new if you don't really get it or if you think it might replace you.
Exactly. It's human nature. So yeah, it sounds like a lot of hurdles, but, and this is important, despite this paradox of deployment without impact, that first wave of Gen AI wasn't wasted. Not at all.
Okay, how so?
It actually fostered employee capabilities. It accelerated AI familiarity across different functions. It helped organizations build really essential skills like prompt engineering, understanding AI ethics, setting up governance framework.
So it kind of laid the groundwork.
Precisely.
Yeah.
All of which is crucial groundwork for this next phase, which promises to be more integrated and hopefully truly transformative.
And that next phase is where Agentic AI comes in. You called it the agentic breakthrough.
Yes. AI agents are really the next frontier here. They extend generative AI beyond just reactive content generation towards autonomous, goal-driven execution.
Execution, that's the key word.
It really is. What's truly revolutionary, or potentially revolutionary, is that agents don't just respond to a prompt. They understand high-level goals. They can break those goals down into granular subtasks. They can interact quite seamlessly with both humans and other software systems. They execute actions, and they adapt in real time.
Wow, okay. And all with minimal human intervention.
That's the goal. Surprisingly minimal in many cases. They achieve this by combining those LLMs we know with additional tech components, things that provide persistent memory, sophisticated planning capabilities, workflow orchestration tools, and deep system integration hooks.
Okay, so it's way more than just the language model. It's the LLM plus all this other stuff that allows it to plan and act.
Exactly. It's an integrated system.
So this isn't just about making things a bit faster, producing text quicker, or summarizing info. It's about taking informed action based on understanding a bigger goal. And the report argues this isn't just about efficiency gains anymore. It's about supercharging operational agility and even unlocking new revenue. It outlines 5 key ways agents transform processes. Can you walk us through those?
Sure. First up, agents enable accelerated execution. Think about traditional workflows, often lots of sequential handoffs between people, waiting times,
Bottleneck.
big bottlenecks. Agents can eliminate those delays. They allow for parallel processing, coordinating, and executing multiple steps simultaneously. This drastically cuts down cycle times and boosts responsiveness across the board.
Okay, speed is one. Makes sense. But what about reacting when things change unexpectedly?
That's number 2, adaptability. Because agents can continuously ingest new data, market shifts, inventory levels, whatever they can adjust, process flows on the fly. They can reshuffle tasks, reassign priorities in real time.
So the workflow isn't static anymore. It becomes dynamic, intelligent.
Exactly. Smarter and much more resilient to unexpected changes.
So a process can kind of self-correct or optimize itself. What about tailoring things for, say, individual customers?
Yes, that's the third one. Personalization. Agents can dynamically tailor interactions and decisions based on individual customer profiles, past behavior, real-time signals. Imagine a process adapting instantly to maximize satisfaction for this specific customer or optimize an offer based on their immediate context.
That sounds powerful. The fourth one mentioned is elasticity. What's that about?
This is a huge one. Think about workload surges, a sudden marketing campaign success, a seasonal peak. Human teams struggle to scale up and down quickly and cost-effectively.
Right, hiring and training take time, and laying people off is painful.
Exactly, but agents are digital. Their execution capacity can expand or contract almost instantaneously based on demand. What used to be a massive operational headache, like that sudden surge, can potentially become a competitive advantage because you can handle it smoothly.
Okay, so instant scalability. And the fifth one?
Resilience. Agents can constantly monitor processes for disruptions, supply chain delays, system outages, unexpected errors. They can proactively reroute operations, find workarounds, and crucially only escalate to humans when it's a truly complex or novel issue they can't handle.
So they keep things running smoothly, handling the routine problems automatically.
Precisely. Keeping the process resilient even when things go wrong.
Okay, those 5 points, acceleration, adaptability, personalization, elasticity, resilience, they paint a compelling picture. But let's make it concrete. The report mentions some black case studies. Can we dive into those? First, there was a bank facing a huge legacy app modernization challenge.
Yes, a big one. They had about 400 legacy software applications to modernize. The budget was huge, around $600 million. And the process was manual, slow, error-prone. The usual story.
Sounds painful. How did agents help?
The approach was really interesting. They set up AI agent squads, supervised by human experts. These specialized agents were tasked with documenting the old legacy applications, actually writing new code based on the documentation, reviewing code written by other agents, and even conducting tests.
So agents coding and checking each other's work.
Essentially, yes, under human oversight. The impact was pretty dramatic. Over a 50% reduction in time and effort in the teams that adopted this early. Humans were elevated from doing the grunt work to supervising, ensuring quality, making strategic decisions. It fundamentally changed the modernization timeline, turning a potential multi-year slog into something much faster and more agile.
That's a massive improvement. Okay, another example. A research firm struggling with data quality. It sounds like a nightmare. 500 people manually checking data, but 80% of the errors were still being caught by clients. Ouch.
Yeah, that's not a good situation. Here, they deployed a multi-agent solution. These agents work together to autonomously identify data anomalies, figure out why they occurred by analyzing market shifts, and surface complex insights that were just incredibly difficult for humans to find manually, given the sheer volume and velocity of the data.
So going beyond just finding errors to explaining them.
Exactly. Now, this wasn't fully in production at the time of the report, but the potential was huge. Estimated over 60% productivity gain for that data quality team, and expected annual savings of over $3 million. It frees up those 500 analysts for much more strategic work, supercharging their capabilities rather than replacing them.
Okay, significant savings and better quality. And the third one, a retail bank reimagining its credit risk memos. You mentioned relationship managers spending weeks on these.
Weeks, yeah. Manually reviewing 10 or more different data sources, internal systems, external reports, just to write these complex memos needed for loan approvals. Very time-consuming.
So how did agents change that workflow?
The agentic approach involved having agents automatically extract the relevant data from all those disparate sources. They could then draft initial sections of the memo, generate confidence scores for the information they provided.
Confidence scores like, I'm 90% sure this data point is correct.
Kind of, yeah. And they could even suggest follow-up questions for the human analyst to investigate further. So the analyst's role shifted completely. Instead of being a data gatherer and report writer, they became a strategic overseer, using their judgment on the agent's output, focusing on the critical nuances.
Focusing on the actual risk assessment, not the copy-paste.
Exactly. The potential impact here was estimated at a 20% to 60% increase in overall productivity for that process, including, crucially, a potential 30% improvement in the credit turnaround time, getting decisions to customers faster.
These examples really bring it home. It's not just tweaking things, it's genuinely transforming core business processes.
That's the promise.
But, okay, these examples are compelling. Agents can clearly do a lot. But here's where it gets really strategic, right? The report emphasizes that simply bolting these powerful agents onto your existing, maybe clunky processes probably won't unlock their full potential.
Absolutely not. That's a crucial point. To get the kind of transformative results we just discussed, you often need to fundamentally redesign the entire workflow, thinking about human and agentic coworkers from the ground up.
Okay, the report uses a customer call center analogy to illustrate this. Can you walk us through those levels?
Sure. It's a great way to visualize the progression. At level 1, you have a Gen AI-enabled call center. Here, Gen AI assists the human agents. Maybe it helps them retrieve information faster, summarizes calls, drafts email replies.
So like the horizontal use cases we talked about earlier, optimization.
Exactly. It's optimization within the existing framework. And the productivity gain is modest, maybe 5–10%, helpful, but not revolutionary.
Okay. Then you move to level 2. This is agent-enabled, but still mostly optimization.
Right. Enhanced optimization. Here, agents start automating discrete tasks within the workflow, maybe classifying incoming tickets automatically, suggesting potential root causes for an issue, routing calls more intelligently. Humans are still driving the overall process.
And the gains here are bigger.
Yeah, significantly bigger. You might see 20–40% time savings per interaction, maybe a 30–50% reduction in backlogs. It's a definite improvement.
But the real game changer is level 3.
That's where the paradigm shift happens. Level 3. Agent-enabled reinvention. Here, you don't just automate tasks, you reimagine the entire process around agent autonomy. Agents might proactively detect customer issues before they call, diagnose the problem automatically, initiate the resolution steps, maybe even communicate directly with the customer for simple fixes.
Wow. So the agents are running the show for many common issues.
For many common predictable issues, yes. Human agents then become escalation managers, stepping in only for the really complex, novel, or sensitive exceptions that require human judgment and empathy.
And the impact at this level.
It's potentially transformative. The report suggests up to 80% of common incidents could be resolved autonomously. You could see a 60–90% reduction in the average resolution time.
Okay, that's huge. But it raises a critical question for any business leader listening, right? When do you just aim for level 1 or 2 optimization, and when do you need to bite the bullet and go for full level 3 reinvention?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer probably depends on the process, the strategic importance, the potential value, and the organization's readiness for change.
Makes sense. And to actually scale these level 3 agentic systems across an enterprise, you run into new challenges, new risks.
Yep.
Things like uncontrolled autonomy, agents going rogue, or just agent sprawl.
Exactly. Sprawl is a big one. Hundreds of agents popping up everywhere, maybe doing redundant things, not properly governed. And you have the challenge of blending agents you build yourself with ones you buy, all while the underlying technology is changing super fast.
So just trying to bolt these agent capabilities onto your existing Gen AI tech stack, it's probably not going to cut it for serious scale.
Likely not sufficient, no. What's needed, the report argues, is a more fundamental architectural shift. They call it the Agentic AI Mesh.
The Agentic AI Mesh. Okay, what exactly is that? It sounds complex.
It is a bit complex,
Yeah.
but the concept is powerful. Think of it as a kind of operating system or a smart fabric specifically designed for agent-based intelligence. It's meant to be dynamic, modular, and heavily governed.
Governed sounds important given the autonomy.
Crucial. It's designed to be composable, meaning you can plug in different agents, tools, LLMs easily. It's distributed so multiple agents can collaborate. And it aims to be vendor agnostic, allowing you to mix and match components. The key idea is enabling potentially thousands of agents to reason, collaborate, and act autonomously across all your systems and tools, but securely and at scale.
Okay, like an intelligent, secure network for agents to operate within. The report highlights 5 key design principles for this mesh. Can you quickly touch on those?
Sure. First, composability, like I mentioned, plug-and-play components. Second, distributed intelligence, breaking down tasks for cooperating agent networks, not relying on one giant AI. Third, layered decoupling, separating logic, memory, orchestration interfaces for flexibility, like microservices, but for agents.
Okay, and the last 2.
Fourth is vendor neutral. The idea is to prefer open standards like something called Model Context Protocol, MCP, or Agent A2A. Basically, common languages so different AI systems from different vendors can talk to each other and integrate smoothly. Avoid getting locked into one vendor's ecosystem.
Smart. And number 5.
Governed autonomy. This is critical. Agent behavior needs to be proactively controlled through embedded policies, rules, escalation paths. You need guardrails to ensure they operate safely, transparently, and predictably.
Right, autonomy doesn't mean chaos.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And this mesh relies on a set of interconnected capabilities, things like discovering available agents and workflows, an AI asset registry to track everything, observability tools to monitor performance, robust security. It's a whole architecture.
Makes sense. And beyond this mesh architecture, the underlying engines, the LLMs themselves, they also need to evolve for this agentic era, right? Agents have different needs than, say, a simple chatbot.
Absolutely. Agents are often autonomous, persistent, embedded in systems. Their requirements are more demanding. The report identifies 5 critical categories of LLM requirements here.
Okay, what are they?
First, low latency inference. For agents working in real-time workflows, you need near-instant responses sub-second times. Think of models like Mistral Small, known for speed. Second, fine-tuning and controllability. For agents in specialized or regulated domains, you need models deeply grounded in specific enterprise knowledge and controllable in their outputs. Llama 370B is an example known for good fine-tuning.
Okay, speed and control. What about agents operating out on devices, not in the cloud?
Good point. That's the third requirement. Lightweight deployment. For agents embedded on edge devices, maybe in IoT sensors or machinery, you need models with a minimal compute and memory footprint. Gemini Nano is a prime example there. Fourth, you need scalable multi-agent orchestration. If you're running hundreds or thousands of agents, you need LLMs that are efficient and cost-effective at handling that massive parallel workload. Models like Mixtral or maybe GPT 3.5 Turbo fit here.
Okay, efficiency at scale.
Yeah.
And the 5th one sounds particularly important for core business operations.
Extremely important. Sovereignty, auditability, and geopolitical resilience. For agents handling sensitive data or critical operations, especially in regulated industries or across borders, you need guarantees about data residency, clear audit trails, and maybe avoiding reliance on APIs hosted in certain jurisdictions. Some larger models like Falcon 180B are developed with these kinds of considerations in mind.
So a whole spectrum of LLM capabilities needed, depending on the agent's job.
Exactly. No single model will be perfect for all agentic tasks.
Looking ahead then, APIs will still be key for agents to talk to existing enterprise systems. But the report suggests something more profound long-term. Enterprise systems themselves need to become agent-first. What does that mean for the future of software, like SAP or Salesforce?
It's a big shift in thinking. It means that the user interfaces, the underlying business logic, the data access layers, they need to be natively designed for machine interaction, not just human navigation through clicks and screens.
So built assuming an agent will be the primary user, not a person.
That's the idea. Making it much easier and more natural for agents to plug in, get data, and trigger actions within those core systems. And the major players, Microsoft, Salesforce, SAP, they're already starting to talk this language and move in this direction. It signals a future where enterprise software isn't just AI augmented. It might become truly agent native at its core.
Wow. Okay, that's a significant architectural and philosophical shift for enterprise IT. Now, while all this technical evolution is incredibly exciting, the report suggests, perhaps counterintuitively, that the main challenge as agents scale will actually be human, not technical. Is that really the case?
Yes, I think that's profoundly true. As the technology matures and becomes more capable, the real complexity, the hardest problems, shift towards the organizational side. Things centered on coordination, human judgment, and especially trust.
Trust seems key. And this plays out across a few critical dimensions, doesn't it? The report mentions human-agent cohabitation. Like, how do humans and these increasingly autonomous agents genuinely work side by side? When should an agent take the lead, and when should it absolutely defer to a human?
Exactly. Getting that balance right is crucial. And trust really hinges on transparency, understanding why an agent is doing what it's doing, predictable behavior, and making the integration feel natural, not jarring, within daily workflows.
And then there's the flip side of autonomy, autonomy control. Agents act independently, that's their power, but it also introduces ambiguity, potential risks. What happens if an agent acts too aggressively? Or maybe even worse, what if it fails to escalate a subtle but critical issue because it didn't recognize the nuance?
That's the tightrope walk. The challenge is making agent autonomy intelligible, understandable, and aligned with organizational goals and risk tolerance. And we still need to rigorously address the risk of hallucinations or inaccurate outputs, because one bad mistake can shatter trust completely.
Makes sense. And finally, a very practical, almost mundane, but critical risk.
Yeah.
Sprawl containment. You mentioned this earlier. It sounds like the early days of RPA, robotic process automation, all over again.
It has echoes of that, yes. There's a significant risk of uncontrolled proliferation, hundreds, maybe thousands of redundant, fragmented, or poorly governed agents popping up everywhere, especially now with low-code and no-code tools making agent creation much more accessible to non-experts.
A new kind of shadow IT, but with autonomous agents.
Potentially, yes. That's why structured governance, clear ownership, and robust lifecycle management for these agents are absolutely essential from the start. You can't let it become the Wild West.
Which leads directly to why the CEO mandate is so critical here. This isn't something that can just be delegated to the IT department or an innovation lab, is it?
Absolutely not. This kind of transformation, touching potentially every process and function, has to be led from the very top. The report outlines 4 key shifts required for this AI transformation, driven by the CEO. First is a shift in strategy.
From
Those scattered, often experimental initiatives we discussed, towards strategic, focused programs directly aligned with the company's most critical priorities. CEOs need to start asking really bold questions like, what would this entire function say, customer service or supply chain, look like if agents were running 60% of it?
That's a provocative question. Okay, shift 1,
Yeah.
strategy. What's next?
Shift 2 is the unit of transformation, moving beyond those narrow, isolated use cases towards the end-to-end reinvention of full business processes, thinking holistically.
Okay, and third.
The delivery model has to change, shifting away from those siloed AI teams or centers of excellence operating in isolation towards truly cross-functional transformation squads. These need to bring together business experts, process designers, data scientists, AI engineers, and those crucial MLOps engineers, all working together.
Breaking down the silos.
And fourth, the implementation process itself. It has to mature from just experimentation and piloting towards industrialized, scalable delivery. And a really important point here, organizations need to rigorously estimate and plan for the ongoing running costs of these agentic solutions. For many Gen AI systems, the inference costs, the monitoring, the maintenance can actually exceed the initial build investment over time.
So it's not just about the upfront cost. You need a sustainable economic model.
You absolutely do. Otherwise, you build something amazing that you can't afford to run at scale.
Okay, those are the 4 shifts. And to enable those shifts, the report points to 4 critical enablers that need to be put in place. First one is people.
People are central. It's about equipping the entire workforce with a human plus agent mindset, fostering cultural change, managing anxieties, and introducing entirely new roles. We're seeing titles like prompt engineers, AI trainers, agent orchestrators emerging.
Reskilling and upskilling. Second enabler.
Governance. We talked about this, but it needs formalizing. Establishing clear frameworks for agent autonomy levels. How much freedom does this agent have? Setting decision boundaries, proactive behavior monitoring, clear audit mechanisms, all designed to enable agents safely and prevent that sprawl.
Right. Third enabler.
Technology architecture. Actively building out that agentic AI mesh we discussed, or whatever equivalent framework you choose, and preparing your core enterprise systems to become more agent native over time. Getting the tech foundations right.
And fourth, inevitably,
Data. Again, accelerating what's called data productization, making high-quality data easily discoverable, accessible, and usable, like a well-documented product. And critically, extending robust governance to cover unstructured data sources because agents will rely heavily on them.
people, governance, tech, data. The four pillars. Okay, so given all this shit, the enablers, what should a CEO actually do right now? The report suggests 3 key actions.
Yes, 3 concrete steps. First, conclude experimentation. Take stock. Review the lessons learned from all those Gen AI pilots you've likely been running. Be honest about what's working and what's not scalable or delivering real value. Retire the duds. And ruthlessly refocus resources on a smaller number of strategic programs with genuine transformative potential.
Okay, consolidate and focus. Second action.
Redesign the AI governance and operating model. Don't wait. Establish a strategic AI council or equivalent body right now. And make sure it involves all the key leadership, not just tech, but business leaders, HR, data, legal, risk, IT. Get everyone around the table to set the direction and the guardrails.
Get the leadership structure right. And the third action.
Launch a lighthouse project and simultaneously initialize the tech foundation. Pick one critical, high-impact area where agentic AI could make a huge difference, and launch a serious transformation project there, your lighthouse. But at the same time, start building the necessary enabling infrastructure, the mesh components, the data quality improvements, the governance frameworks, the workforce readiness programs.
So don't wait for the perfect tech foundation before starting the lighthouse. Do them in parallel.
Exactly. You need to learn by doing on the lighthouse project, while concurrently building the scalable foundation. Waiting to perfect one before starting the other will just take too long in this fast-moving field.
That makes a lot of sense. Start building momentum while laying the tracks.
Precisely. So wrapping up, agentic AI. It really feels like more than just an incremental step, doesn't it? It feels like a genuine strategic inflection point. One that's going to redefine how companies operate, how they compete, how they create value.
Yeah, it presents this huge leapfrog opportunity for companies that get it right, but also, frankly, a pretty profound risk for those who hesitate or stick to just tinkering around the edges.
Agreed. The so what here seems crystal clear. The technology, while still evolving rapidly, appears mature enough now for truly transformative change. This isn't about minor tweaks anymore. It's about fundamental reinvention.
Reimagining workflows, intelligently redistributing tasks between humans and machines, effectively rewiring the organization from the ground up.
Indeed. You could say the time for widespread, scattered exploration is kind of ending.
And the time for focused strategic transformation is now.
I think so. CEOs who act decisively on this, who lead this change personally, they won't just gain a temporary performance edge. They could fundamentally redefine how their organizations think, how they make decisions, and how they execute their core mission for years to come.
It makes me think of that example the report mentions, Moderna merging its HR and IT leadership roles. That's a pretty bold statement, isn't it?
It's a very clear signal. It says AI isn't just another technical tool to be managed by IT. It's a fundamental force shaping the workforce, the operating model, the very future of work itself.
It's not just about the tech. It's about building a whole new kind of organization for this digital, increasingly autonomous age. Fascinating stuff.